Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stephen, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stephen, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, proud American by choice. Coming to you with episode 226 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Very glad to have you here. Theme of the show tonight, and I think I've used this title before, to be honest, but it's just as true. Another week, another scandal. And guess what? Yeah, we've got another scandal. But we've got other topics as well that we're going to be talking about. So folks, sit back, enjoy the ride. We're going to be here for just under the next hour, and looking forward to talking to you. And somewhere during the show, try and get the information to you, how you can get in contact with me, give me your feedback, give me your questions, etc. And I do have to say, this week, as I mentioned last week, this week the show is coming to you from the left coast. That's right, from the City of Angels. And I'm here in the People's Republic of California. Interesting place, let me just say that. But I've been very busy, haven't had much time to get outside, but it's nice to visit the West Coast. But I'm going to be very busy here. I don't think I'll get much chance to do anything else. And then back home, and I don't know, I might be back here next week, might be working from home. I'll let you know. But anyway, and also apologies for the late start for those of you that listen live. I was 5 or 6 minutes late. Good thing about Spreaker is it's not as critical about timing as Blog Talk Radio was. The bad news is, I had technical problems at this new hotel that I'm at, and although I'd tried to get everything set up, for some reason at the last minute everything stopped working again, and I had to reboot the computer, and that takes a certain amount of time. So technical problems. Anyway, let's get on with the show, and let's see what we've got this week in terms of topics. And our first topic tonight is something that you can use in any discussions you have when people start talking about legal and illegal immigration. Of course, this is quite a hot topic with all the kids trying to cross the border, and everybody talks about the children crossing the border. Well, but the vast majority are in the 15 to 17, 18-year-old boys, all tattoos, gang members. And if they're not gang members, a lot of them are very quickly recruited into the gangs once they get out, once they get their notice to appear at a deportation proceeding, which a very low percentage actually turn up. But anyway, we know all about that. It's been on all the news, and nobody's going to do anything about it. They're just going to let it happen. I'm glad to see that Governor Perry is sending the National Guard there. But as the law stands right now, as soon as the kids cross the border, because of the sex trafficking law, they can't just be sent back. And it needs more stringent action. And I think that includes telling the Central American countries where these kids come from. And children it's gang members, boys, and mothers with children, because they all think if they can get across the border, they're not going to get sent back. So there's two things they need to do. One, they need to tell these countries if they continue to send people, cut off aid. Mexico is making it easy for these people to cross Mexico. They're giving them 72 hours to get across Mexico, don't need a visa or anything, not going to get arrested. We need to stop aid to Mexico. And the people that are here need to get sent back. So we don't send them to parents, we don't send them to friends, we don't send them to foster families. We put them in a camp. There are enough of these FEMA camps set up around the country. We put them into a FEMA camp and keep them there until we can do the deportation hearings. We set some judges in there, and then we just put them on a plane and send them back. That's what we should be doing. And why should we be doing that? Well, the Center for Immigration Studies released a report 2 or 3 weeks ago that ought to be political dynamite. But of course the lamestream media is sweeping this under the carpet because they would hate to have any of this come out. But basically the report says since the year 2000, immigrants have taken all the new jobs, while native-born Americans have suffered a decline in the numbers employed. So while there have been new jobs created, a lower number than we would have if we'd have had the right people in the White House, but whatever. But those jobs that have been created have been taken by immigrants, legal and illegal. Now, legal immigrants have a right to a job, that's fine. Illegal immigrants don't. But isn't it telling that legal and illegal immigrants take all the new jobs and Americans are suffering a decline? So why is this big push to have have a comprehensive immigration reform and bring in even more people? We don't need more people. Americans are losing jobs and they're not getting them back. So why should we bring in more? Let's sort out that problem first, and then we can think about bringing more people in. And this country grew strong on the backs of immigrants. I'm not saying stop immigration. I'm just saying we need to control it. It needs to be controlled properly, and it needs to be the whole process itself does need to be changed. It takes way too long to get any of the visas, and maybe we need to have a good worker program put into place with special cards. I've said this before, instead of the green cards, which are actually pink, we should have something like a blue card, which let the people come in, let them pay taxes, let them do all the normal things except vote, and maybe even say if you come in as a worker, you cannot progress to a citizen. If you want to do that, you have to come in on a green card and something like that. So I mean, there's all sorts of things that we should do on that side before we even start talking about just letting people in. And that whole humanitarian thing is a crock. It's a pile of BS. But anyway, so let's go back to the report by the Center for Immigration Studies. Right? It shows that all of the net gain in the number of working age people, 16 to 65, holding a job has gone to immigrants. And this is remarkable given that native-born Americans account for 2/3 of the growth in the total working age population. So the working age population has grown by 2/3. But even though there's been some recovery from the Great Recession, there are still fewer working-age natives holding a job in the first quarter of 2014 than in 2000, while the number of immigrants with a job was 5.7 million above the 2000 level. Now, all of this increase over the last 14 years is partly because even before the Great Recession, immigrants were gaining a disproportionate share of jobs relative to their share of the population growth. In addition, during the recession, Native Americans lost many more jobs proportionately. And immigrants have recovered much more quickly from the recession. In other words, they're getting the jobs. Why would that be? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, so now we have 58 million working age natives who are not working. 58 million. This country is somewhere, I don't know, 330 million, 350 million. That is a huge percentage. So the Schumer-Rubio bill and other House measures would substantially increase the number of foreign workers allowed in the country. Seems to be out of touch with reality there. The person who wrote this commentary on this report said, 3 conclusions can be drawn from these numbers. First, the long-term decline in the employment for natives across age and education levels is a clear indication there is no general labor shortage, which is a primary justification for the large increases in immigration, skilled and unskilled, in all of these bills that the out-of-touch elitists in Washington are trying to push forward. They're thinking back to the late 1900s, right, 1990s or early 2000, and they think there's still a shortage of labor. There isn't, but they're behind the times. But we already knew that. Secondly, the decline in work amongst the native-born over the last 14 years with high immigration is consistent with research showing that immigration reduces employment for natives. Of course, you bring in cheap labor, who's going to get the jobs? Third, the trend since 2000 challenged the argument that immigration on balance increases job opportunities for natives. Over 17 million immigrants, legal and illegal, arrived in the country in the last 14 years, yet employment for Native Americans, and I mean people born in America, has deteriorated significantly. Now, on another site, somebody commented on that and said immigrants are more willing to relocate to places where there are more jobs. Yeah, they have no ties in the country, so they're it's quite easy for them to up stakes and move to where the jobs are. They take lower wage jobs, which are more in abundance in a weak economy, and they also have much fewer unemployment insurance options, so they're more likely to pursue jobs than American citizens who can rely on social services. And that ties in very closely with the report that I had 1 or 2 shows ago, where we saw that since the 99-week unemployment insurance was not extended anymore, even though the Democrats wanted to do that, all of a sudden job uptake started happening. And this is because people are not getting the insurance now, and so now they start working harder to actually get a job. So the writer of the article, and I agree 100% with this, the data raises the question, does the US really need to increase the number of new labor market entrants through comprehensive immigration reform? Come on, think about it, Washington. On whose behalf are you operating? That of the immigrants or that of native-born Americans who deserve a job? Well, guess what? I think they're just the Democrats want to have these immigrants in because they see them as a voting pool when they're finally able to get them citizenship, especially the illegals. And as I said, there's only one answer for that. Anybody who came here legally and doesn't leave and go back to their country and come in through the front door should never get the opportunity to become legal. We can discuss about whether or not they should be able to stay here on a special card, whatever. You know, maybe so we've got a pink one, we've got the green card, which is pink, we've got the blue one, so maybe we need a yellow one, which is for illegals who are ever here, and maybe they can stay here, maybe they can live here permanently, but they can never become citizens. They should be shut out from that. And again, we can have a discussion about dreamers, obviously the young children who came here through no fault of their own, maybe you exempt them. But any other people who came here illegally, they've got to pay the fines, they've got to pay the taxes, preferably back taxes, back Social Security, all of that, and they never get the ability to vote. that would be the fairest all round. Of course, the Democrats will never do that because they think this is a pool of voters that's specifically designed for them. But, well, we'll see what will go on and what will happen. We've got another 2 weeks, apparently, before Congress goes into recess for the summer, and there's a lot of people don't expect anything to happen in the next 2 weeks in terms of immigration reform. So, okay, folks, time for a break, and got to pay the rent, as I like to say. These are some new commercials, so listen carefully if you would. Use the 800 number if any of these services interest you. Remember, it helps support this show. And I will be right back after these messages. Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us,
Patriot come lately. British by birth, American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Attention! Have you been in a serious automobile accident? Then you need to call our attorneys now. We specialize in helping our clients get compensated for major auto injuries. If you've been in any type of car or motorcycle accident and you've been seriously injured, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Our attorneys have recovered millions and millions of dollars for injured clients. There are no out-of-pocket costs to you ever. We only receive a fee when we win your case. We are available 24/7. If you've been in an accident and been seriously injured, make this free call to our attorneys now. Call the Personal Injury Center at 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. That's 800-634-1315. This ad is paid for by participating member law firms. We are not an attorney referral service. Representation may not be available in your state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through the break. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. We're on to the next topic, but before I do that, just want to give you a reminder that in addition to Red State Talk Radio rebroadcasting these shows, sorry about that, folks. There are 4 stations: Texas, Maryland, North Carolina, and Arizona, that carry Red State Talk Radio feed, and that means Patrick Come Lately is also available by normal AM and FM stations. And I know Prima Mondoni is working to expand that syndication to ground-based stations, so that's nice to hear. Okay, folks, let's talk about the next topic. And as I said at the beginning, the kind of the main theme of tonight's show was another week, another scandal. I've used that title before, but it applies again this week because the latest regime scandal seems to be surfacing. And this time it's the Department of Injustice. Well, they've been in enough scandals, but they've got a new one now. And this is something I've talked about before, which was Operation Choke Point. I've talked about that. That was This was an action they were doing to work with banks, supposedly using bank regulations to choke off fraudulent businesses from accessing financial services. Well, again, you listen to that, say, fraudulent businesses. Of course, that makes sense. You don't want frauds out there doing anything. And there's all sorts of regulations in the financial area which they apply. Remember, there are so many regulations now, it's actually very difficult for any normal person or company to go through any period of time without actually breaking some laws somewhere. But this Operation Choke Point is designed around rules that were supposed to prevent fraudulent businesses. Instead, the Department of Injustice is working with other federal agencies, primarily the Treasury and the SEC, to pressure financial institutions to decline doing business with what the Department of Injustice calls high-risk industries, but which happen to line up squarely against the political leanings of the current regime. Yes, that's right. They are using the force of the administration. The only people that technically are allowed to use force against you, because that's what the government is, right? Anybody else shoots a gun, it's bad, but if the government does it, they're allowed to do it primarily. But they're doing it against industries which the current regime does not like. And this includes ammunition sales, payday loans. I can understand that, and that's not good. Pornography, again, that's not good. But on the other hand, in a free society and in a free market, whether you like it or not makes no difference. So, there's nothing illegal about ammunition sales. There's nothing illegal about payday loans. The other ones were firework companies, but specifically also, obviously, gun dealers are included in that. So not just ammunition sales, but also gun dealers that are being forced by the banks to lose their source of finance, which again, it's a free. They're not doing anything illegal, and many of the banks are not even bothering to fight this. I mean, this is the bad news. They're just kind of rolling over and say, we don't want the hassle. The DOJ, the SEC, the Treasury, and there are instances where horrendous things are happening. Now, there are actually 24 industries on that list that are being focused upon by the Department of Injustice. Now, a former chairman of the FDIC was quoted as saying, Operation Choke Point is one of the most dangerous programs I've experienced in my 45 years of service as a bank regulator, bank attorney and consultant, and bank board member. Operating without illegal authority and guided by a political agenda, unelected officials at the Department of Injustice are discouraging banks from providing basic banking services to lawful businesses simply because they don't like them. Now, the House Judiciary Committee has had a hearing focusing on the legality of the Department of Injustice overreach. Letters have poured in from company owners in support of these suspicions, noting startling cases where the Department of Injustice reportedly has directly strong-armed banks into dropping clients not engaging in fraud. Virginia Republican Representative Robert Goodlatte revealed that one of the most egregious examples sent into the committee was a meeting between the Department of Injustice and a bank regarding the continued provision of financial services to a payday loan company. The Department of Injustice official reportedly told the banker, I don't like this product and I don't believe it should have a place in our financial system. And if you don't agree, there will be an immediate unplanned audit of your entire bank, which is going to cost the bank a fortune. The Justice Department has now served over 50 subpoenas on banks. And the Republican Representative Backus expressed considerable concern that dragging banks into a long, expensive process is just an underhand way of encouraging banks to drop clients as an easy out, which is exactly what they'll do. If you were a bank manager, if you were management in a bank, and the Department of Justice comes to you and threatens an unplanned audit, I mean, that's thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars that and disruption and inconvenience to you, all of that. Of course you're going to roll over. You're not going to fight it. So most of the banks, and this is what Backus said, are just going to take the easy way out and sever their relations with the merchant. So Congress is looking at it. But as we know, the regime just thumbs their nose at Congress. They're going to do whatever they want to do. Now, there is an act, a bill that's been put forward in the House. I don't know whether it's got that far yet, but it's not going to go anywhere because of Dingy Harry in the Senate, right? He always said, "Oh, the Republicans are the party of no." Who's really the party of no, and who's the leader of no? That's Dingy Harry. But he brought forward the End Operation Choke Point Act, and he's going to try. This act's going to try and curb the Department of Injustice's activities in this area. The act would provide financial institutions with a safe harbor to serve customers engaged in legal activities, so as to cut out politically motivated attacks on businesses deemed undesirable by the Department of Injustice. So, there it is. We'll see what comes of that, but it's whether the act goes any further. But at least the fact that Congress is looking at it helps, right? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So and that's part of my objective with this show, is to bring these things to light and ask my listeners, please spread the word. Tell people about what's going on. Tell people about this misuse of administration, regime, power again with this Operation Choke Point. Remember, these are Choke Point, the law that was set up and the regulations that allow them to do that are actually set up to prevent fraudulent businesses from operating, but they're applying it to legal, non-fraudulent businesses. They're just doing it at their whim, at their discretion, at their choice, and that is totally wrong. They're unelected, but even if they were elected people, and obviously you know where it's coming from, it is coming from an elected person. And as I've said in the past, it may not be that he actually tells the Department of Injustice to do this, although in that case he and Holder are as tight as two you-know-whats, and wouldn't surprise me at all that he did actually tell Holder this is what, that they basically conspired together to set this up and do it. And it's just so dangerous all round. Now, I've got an interesting next topic, which I'm going to try and squeeze in at least some of it, maybe not all of it, but some of it before the next break. So, yeah, let's go to the next topic. And the next topic is rather a surprise. There is a liberal professor at George Washington University Law School who agrees that our Constitution is in danger. He's a very respected professor, Jonathan Turley, and was speaking about the House GOP's lawsuit against Obama for unconstitutionally using executive orders, issuing a chilling statement on, I think this was last week Wednesday, that this could be a historic moment. And basically, he's all in favor of this lawsuit. Now, there are lots of people going around saying, we're wasting our time, wasting money with this lawsuit. But how else do we rein in the administration? They are obviously overstepping what is intended in the Constitution. And the only way you can stop it, well, actually there is another way. If you listen to Mark Levin, and he's quite right, they should use the power of the purse. However, we see what happens then. When we do that, right, shut down the government, in essence, then Obama takes it out on veterans and tourists at federal national parks, things like that. So he gets back at us very well and basically turns around what is something very positive and turns it into something very negative. Oops, time has caught up with me, folks, so I'm going to continue with this topic after the break.
Reporting from the eye of the storm. This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again. I'm predicting this storm front is heading your way, so call Basement Systems and relax.
Call 800-205-8665 for your free in-home inspection, or visit basementradiooffer.com. That's 800-205-8665, or visit basementradiooffer.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call. But I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-750-5371. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-750-5371. That's 877-750-5371.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, proud American by choice, I should say. And we're into the second half of the show, so got about another 30 minutes to go, a little under 30 minutes. And I do want to say, before we go back to the topic that we were talking about, the liberal professor that agrees that our Constitution is in danger, and I want to talk a little bit more about that because he's got some very valid points. I do want to say, if you agree or disagree, or if you have questions about this topic, any of the other topics in this show, or any topics in past shows, contact me. If you're listening live, you can contact me through the chat room, the little green speech bubble at the bottom of the screen. If you're not listening live, then Red State Talk Radio or any of the other or the archives of the recordings, which is archives.patrickcomelately.us. If you're listening there, Red State Talk Radio, or if you're listening to any of the stations that rebroadcast the Red State Talk Radio feed, then obviously it's not live, but then contact me via email or Facebook, and here's some information to help you with that.
If you would like to comment on any of the topics discussed on the show, please email me via stefan@patrickcomelately.us, or go to the show's website, www.patrickcomelately.us, and click on the contact button. You can also write your comments on the show's Facebook page. Just search in Facebook for the Patrick Come Lately Show. And
actually have to update that little clip because just search for Patrick Come Lately on Facebook, not Patrick Come Lately Show, and you'll actually find my personal Facebook page. You can put comments there, you can message me, whatever, and love to hear from my listeners. So and the easiest is either via email or, of course, at the website www.patrickcomelately.us. There is a contact page there, and that also comes straight to me. Okay, so back to the topic at hand, and this was this liberal professor at George Washington University at the law school there, and he says that the current Congress is losing its powers to a kind of uber presidency, which is one of the things that I and many other conservatives have been saying for quite a while. He says our system is changing, and this body is the one branch that must act if we are to reverse those changes, and he urges that. Turley said there is a new model of government emerging, one in which our founding fathers thoroughly rejected, and pointed out that when Obama announced his unconstitutional dictatorial powers, Democrats in Congress actually cheered him on. A dominant presidency has occurred with very little opposition. So thank you, Boehner and the GOP. Why don't you stand up and get some backbone? Have some cojones. Indeed, when President Obama pledged to circumvent Congress, he received rapturous applause from the very body he was proposing to make practically irrelevant. Referring to Congress bending over to give Obama its constitutional legislative powers, Turley said that the Congress is moving from self-loathing to self-destruction in a system that is in crisis. This is not some conservative pundit or conservative political figure or whatever, or conservative talk show host saying it. This is a liberal professor at a liberal university saying all of this. Turley went on, the President's pledge to effectively govern alone is alarming, and what is most alarming is his ability to fulfill that pledge. When a President can govern alone, and this is, to me, this was the most frightening. When a President can govern alone, he can become a government unto himself, which is precisely the danger the framers sought to avoid. So wake up, America. Why are we allowing all of this to happen? We must be stupid, but it's the government elites in Washington. They're so out of touch with the people. They're so wrapped up in their own well-being, on the graft, getting money. They don't care about us. They only care about themselves. And the fact that they're giving away all this power to the president, I think all they're thinking about is, well, when we get into power, then we'll have that power as well. And that's all they worry about. They don't think whether or not it's right for the country. So we really need to shake America awake, folks. And that's one of the themes of my program. Shake America awake. Don't let this country become like the socialist, the Euro-socialist countries in Europe, where and even though they have elections, the person at the top there has an awful lot of power. Now, Turley. You might, like I said, say, well, how do we know he's a liberal? How do we know that he's actually, more left-wing than right-wing, that he's not some hidden right-wing person? In earlier interviews has admitted that he agrees with Obama on many of his policies. Now, interpretation here. This is my interpretation of that, if you like, or my analysis of what's said there. I have no problems with Turley admitting that he agrees with Obama on many of his policies. This is the way politics are. Obama was voted in. He has the right to have a policy. The only issue is he does not have the right to apply that policy himself. He has to encourage, cajole, work with Congress to get the policies that he wants put into place. That's what's going wrong. He's just doing it because Congress won't give him what he wants, so he's taking it himself. And we need to fight back and say, no, you can't do that. Now, if he works with Congress and gets them to vote something in with which I disagree. I can be unhappy about it, but it is the law. But when he does it this way, I agree 100% that he needs to be taken to court. They need to get it. Basically, it's going to go up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has to make a ruling to say, hey, Obama, you've gone too far. And that claptrap about the fact that Obama has actually generated less executive orders than George Bush or Clinton, whatever, any of the presidents before him, they have created more. It's not about the number, it's not about the volume, it's about the depth. What are those executive orders doing? And he's done the most that flatantly flout the law. Now, I know the left wing says, well, all the presidents are allowed some latitude in making the actual applicability of the law and how it gets interpreted. That's what an executive order is for. But he's doing it all the time, and there are ones like the Defense of Marriage Act where he basically said, don't do anything on it. That's not postponing or adapting the law because it isn't workable. That's just saying, I don't like it, so don't do it. That means he's deciding what Congress voted in. He doesn't like it, so he's not going to do it. That, to me, is definitely illegal. Now, with Obamacare, where he's modified many key provisions as well, I think there it's on the edge. Is it legal? Is it not? Is it something it wasn't workable? I think the big issue there is not so much whether he's adapted the law, but the way he's adapted its applicability. In other words, crony capitalism, giving the brakes to those groups that support him and not to others. That, to me, is the legal part of it, and you can argue that, okay, he does have the authority to do it and say, okay, we can't have the company mandate because we're not really ready for it. Well, that's BS, but okay, you can get away with that. But by saying these group of people don't need a mandate while the others do, that, to me, is very, very wrong. Anyway, so Turley says he agrees with Obama, and he actually voted for Obama in 2008, although he didn't say who he voted for or whether he voted for Obama in 2012. Now, Turley says the problem of the executive branch usurping power it hasn't been given didn't start with Obama or even George W. Bush, and he was pretty critical of Bush during the Bush years. But he asserted it has now reached a tipping point, and he's urging Congress to aggressively seek to regain the ground that it has lost. Now, so he was asked whether or not the House GOP lawsuit was a good idea, and he says, yes, I do think it's a good idea. Turley says that the Constitution's separation of powers established by the framers wasn't there to protect each of the three branches, but was there to protect individual liberty. So one branch couldn't get so powerful as to attack individual liberty. And guess what's happening now? That one branch is too powerful and is attacking individual liberty. We've seen that, all the nanny state things, all these things going on, the EPA, talked about Operation Choke Point, that's all attacking individual liberty. Turley compares Obama's reasons for changing laws on his own without congressional approval almost identical to the reasons given by King James I. Sounds familiar. Turley admitted he had voted for Obama in 2008. He hasn't said whether or not he voted for him in 2012. But he does say there's no license in the Madisonian system to go it alone. Now, Madison is considered the main author of the U.S. Constitution. And Obama is attempting to be a majority of one by ordering changes on his own terms. And that is very, very dangerous. He also chastises Democrats, although he didn't call them that, who remain silent in the face of Obama's unconstitutional dictates, saying that their silence could very easily backfire under a future presidency. Indeed, because if the Republicans come in and start messing around and doing the same thing, and I'll be the first to shout at the same time, any president needs to stick to the Constitution, stick to the law. But Turley warns this is not going to be our last president. And he's right. And just imagine that a very right-wing president comes in and starts doing the same. Oh boy, the LSM will go nuts at that point in time. Believe me, they will have a field day. So why aren't they doing it now? Well, obviously because it's a left-wing guy, and we all know that. But they're stupid. They're sticking their head in the sand because they just don't see what's going on. Okay, folks, I see the next commercial break is coming up, so please stick with me, and I will be back again after I've hopefully paid a bit more rent.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Boy, man, I had a rough night's sleep. Boy, whew, I got a letter from the IRS yesterday, and I just couldn't sleep. Man, I'm dying here. Somebody help me.
IRS problems affect more than just your finances. If you're ready to take back control of your life and you owe more than $10,000, you need to call the tax doctor. Their expert staff can immediately protect you from the IRS and state collectors and get you the best possible tax settlement guaranteed. The IRS has recently released new programs geared in helping struggling taxpayers, where you may qualify to settle your tax debt and wipe out up to 85% or more of what you currently owe. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, call the tax doctor right now. See if you qualify to pay less. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. Again, 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Okay, we're into the final segment of this week's show, episode 226. I hope you've enjoyed it so far, and just a little reminder, if you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends. If you don't enjoy the show, please tell your enemies, but either way, get the word out. The more listeners, the better, and do try and, especially for those of you that are listening to either the recordings or to the Red State Talk Radio rebroadcast, do try and join me live and join me in the chat room. I love watching the people chat amongst themselves, and also try and jump in there if there are specific questions or comments about the show as we go along. This is a one-man operation, so I can't always participate in the chat room, but I do like to watch what's going on, and so join me live. It's nice to do this in a live format, and hope that more of you will be able to do that. But anyway, whether you listen to the recordings, whether you listen live, tell your friends and get them to listen one way or the other. Well, we were talking about our dear friend in the White House trying to usurp more and more power, and here's another one that's connected with that, and we go back to the Department of Injustice. We were talking about choke point, but here's another one, and forgot to load up my alarm sound to Spreaker, but I should have done that tonight, because I should be playing the alarm here, because here's a very big alarm. Another attack on the First Amendment. Some of you will know about this, but I want to remind folks about this, because this is one that hasn't had a lot of airplay either on the conservative networks. It got mentioned, but not a lot, and definitely not in the mainstream media. But you may remember, if you've seen it somewhere, that there was a float in, I think in Nebraska, or was it? Yes, it was in Nebraska. Norfolk, Nebraska, on the 4th of July parade, there was a float which had an outhouse, a privy on it. And on the side of the privy it said the Obama Presidential Library. And there was a zombie-like figure outside the outhouse, which a lot of people said looked like Obama. The person who made the float said no, it was actually supposed to be himself. But, whatever. Now, so what happens? The Department of Justice decides that they're going to investigate it. The Nebraska Democratic Party called the float one of the worst shows of racism and disrespect for the office of the presidency that Nebraska has ever seen. Racism? Question mark. But then again, the regressives always throw out racism if there's anything that they're against, because that's the easy thing to do. Disrespect for the office of the presidency? To a certain extent they're right, but then again, the person that's living at the White House doesn't engender any respect anyway. Everything he does engenders disrespect. So, let's do that. Now, Department of Justice can't investigate this, can't investigate the IRS, can't do that. But at the drop of a hat, they were able to send someone to Nebraska to have a meeting with the NAACP, the Norfolk mayor, so the mayor of the town where it happened, the Norfolk Oddfellows. They're the group that coordinated the parade. What a load of BS. Now, the creator of the float said the mannequin depicted himself. I mentioned that earlier. He said he was upset with the president's handling of the Veterans Affairs Department, right? And that's why he did it. But racism, and there's somebody I follow on Twitter, at Iowa Hawk blog, David Burge. He's really funny, got a lot of good things, but he also has he's got a very good sense of political things, and kind of very sharp. And he had a very good tweet that I want to share with you. He said, the Department of Injustice wants a dialogue with the guy who made Obama outhouse parade float. Okay, let's start and end the dialogue with this. And then he has a picture of the following. First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, abridging the freedom of speech, right? Congress shall make no law. So what's the Department of Justice doing? What makes them think that they can get away with that and go in and stop someone from doing something like that? You may not agree with it. If you're a Democrat, I can understand if you're a bit annoyed that someone would do that. And like I said, is it respectful of the president? No. But if you think that the president is disrespecting the American people, it is our right. Right? It's part of the Constitution. It's the First Amendment. It's our right to say so, and we're allowed freedom of speech. We're allowed to do something like that. So now they're trying to use racism as an excuse, and then use whatever these laws against hate speech and this, that, and the other, which in of themselves, to me, while hate speech is something that should always be we should be against, but should it be illegal? No, because that's not what the First Amendment says. And I think for me, my favorite saying is, I may not agree with you with what you say, but I will defend to the end your right to say it. And that's what we should be looking at. Okay, folks, we've reached the end of the show, so it's almost time for the music to start. I do just want to remind folks, once again, if you enjoyed the show, please email me, contact me, let me know, send me your comments, questions, whatever. And also, please tell your friends. If you don't like the show, then tell your enemies, whatever. either way, please spread the word. I really hope that you can do that for me. Okay, folks, it's time to say TTFN, ta-ta for now. Join me next week again, same time, same place, hopefully on time this week. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.